So let's talk some about fears. Fears are things that if the other side gets their way, which in this case would mean there are no charter schools, what do you lose? What goes wrong?
Actually, what happens is we continue exactly as we are.
And what's wrong with that? What's going wrong?
What's wrong with where we are is we have a system where truthfully this idea that we talk about in America that you can work hard, achieve anything that you want to achieve if you just put your heart and your mind to it. Well, that's not really true. When we talk about education as being this great equalizer, you can send a kid to school and go on to high school and college and then whatever else. That only works most times in America if you live in the right zip code, if your parents have the right level of education, if they have the right resources, with social capital, political capital, in order to put kids in the right position so that they can be successful. But the reality is that absent those things, absent those resources, absent those forms of capital, poor children end up in situations where it's next to impossible to really get out of poverty.
So lack of quality education is greatly disadvantaging. Okay, so solutions. Let's talk solutions, because you've talked some about how different the implementation very much matters. So what implementation do you see as the right solution?
Well, I don't think there's a right necessarily or wrong. We can talk about policy design and we can talk about implementation. Part of the problems, and Craig and I started talking about this, I know he's going to talk about it when he comes up as well. Charter school laws in lots of states have not been written well. I believe in Kentucky we're in a particularly good position because we're one of the last states to consider truly adopting charter schools, and so we can learn from lots of the mistakes that other states have made. But one of the things that has prevented states from really writing good charter school policy, really good charter school law, is that there's been so much polarization. It's been a left versus right, or a pro-charter versus no charter. Whereas if everyone could sit down together, put their heads together and say, what can we do so that we can write the best possible charter school law, so that we can have charter schools on the ground that serve children well, that really add to what we have in terms of a public education system. That is best case scenario.
So we only have 2 minutes left. Do you have time to say one or two of the policies that might be good policy?
Yeah, one of the things that we know to be critical in a charter school policy hinges on charter school authorizers. And charter school authorizers are the persons, the bodies that the law gives the power to actually grant a charter. Right? So let's say we have a group of parents, we have a group of teachers, group of educators that want to apply for an actual charter. The body that they would apply to would be the authorizer. And so the law has to set up who that authorizer is. In some cases, that authorizer can be a local school district. In some cases, it can be a public university. In some cases, there's an actual charter school commission, state charter school commission that is set up that folks can apply to. But that authorizer is so critical because that authorizer has to, one, hold those applications to a really high standard to ensure that not just anybody who falls off a truck can get a charter. That's not what we want. We want to make sure you have really high quality applications so that you get a good charter off the ground, and then after it's off the ground, you want to make sure that that authorizer is doing what it's supposed to do to hold that charter school accountable. And so in some of the laws that we see, what I would say are good laws across the country, and one of the things we're talking about in Kentucky is automatic closure provisions. Provisions that actually limit the amount of flexibility authorizers have to allow failing charter schools to continue to operate. Because failing charter schools that continue to operate does us no good. We have traditional public schools that continue.
Okay, time is up. So put high quality authorizer of the charter school with accountability. That the authorizer is also holding the charter school accountable. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Joe and Deanne, any last question or comment? We're out of time.
I have one question, if you could just answer it really quickly, or we could go on. Why charter schools over fixing the whole education system?
That's actually a pretty easy one.
Okay, good.
Because we've been trying to do that for a long time, and we're still in the same situation.
Is it a possible solution, or have we just gotten so beaten down from trying that it doesn't even seem like a real solution?
I would argue that in the United States today, right, we haven't figured out, and I'll speak specifically to high poverty urban districts, we haven't really figured out how to take high poverty urban districts that have really just fell into utter chaos. We haven't really figured out how to take those districts and turn them around wholesale. And so we're left with this dilemma, right? If we don't know how to fix the whole district, then do we hold all kids hostage within that district until we figure that out? Or are there alternatives that we can create, options that we can create for families, where even if it's a percentage of those kids that we get out, do we let them out? Or as Dr. Howard Fuller said, do we let them all burn?